Welcome to the X Factor podcast. I am your host, Charles Epstein. Today, joining me straight out of Seattle, one of the few major American cities I've never been, is Giselle Fuerte, founder of Being Human with AI, where she leads AI education innovation by designing and launching a pioneering AI ethics curriculum for young learners. Giselle is also a learning architect with Paychecks, where she drives organizational performance through strategic learning program design and optimization across sales, HR, and insurance business units. Giselle, hey, how are you?
Wonderful. Thank you. That was an amazing intro. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it goes fast downhill from here,
Oh,
Giselle.
good.
So, yeah.
Thank you for setting the expectation. I am prepared.
Yes, exactly. We immediately have to lower the bar. You know, I mentioned I've never been in Seattle, and we spoke in the lead up to this. You surprised me by telling me that Seattle is not the most friendly place. I've never heard that before.
Okay. Yes, there is the concept. It's the Seattle freeze, where we can be very standoffish and slow to embrace new people into our personal networks. I do think that's changing. I see folks who are, because of the giants, Amazon, Microsoft, et cetera. I feel like there are, so many folks who are moving in from outside of Washington, and they're bringing their warmer energy to our city.
Oh,
So it's changing a little bit.
okay. Again, I think of Seattle immediately, of course, being a music guy.
Yeah,
I think of the birthplace of grunge.
right.
And, it's kind of funny because in many of my pre-production calls, I'll trot out musical references. It's a great way of breaking the ice and finding common ground. And you surprised me by telling me that your kids, for some bizarre reason,
Yes.
like smooth jazz. I don't know how that came to be. And then you mentioned that your ex like metal.
Right.
And then I said, you know what? I have a great idea for a completely new genre, smooth metal. And you immediately dismissed it out of hand, which I kind of resented.
Oh, wow. That's strong. And then I have a feeling you're going to get some comments that maybe there is something like smooth metal that exists somewhere, right? Maybe somebody's going to say that it does exist and point us
I
to
mean,
it.
I
I don't
have
know.
never heard going up or down an elevator, Iron Maiden or Black
Right.
Sabbath or
With
Metallica.
the
That
little
would be kind of
sax.
strange. Yeah, War Pigs or Paranoid, going up and down the elevator,
Yeah. Yeah.
strings, orchestral arrangements,
Little,
smooth
little
metal.
cello, little.
I,
Yeah.
I, I don't know. I mean, yeah, you know what? I don't even think it's an oxymoron. It's sort of like two concepts that sort of negate each other.
Right. Right. But now
Sort of
somebody
like
has to do it. And
somebody has to do it.
AI might be able to do this. Somebody
You know
out
what?
there, please
You know what? I
do a
like that.
mashup.
I like that. Before we get into it,
Yeah,
I know this is a crazy digression, one digression after another,
that's all right.
but I just read this amazing book, Cameron Crowe, the director, previously, of course.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote a lot of profiles for Rolling Stone at the age of 15 in the 70s. Great, great book. In any case, and he is also the writer of Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Right.
And they were shopping the script, some directors. At one point, they actually thought they were going to get David Lynch interested. So could you talk about a mashup?
Wow.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High and Twin Peaks?
Yeah, yeah. There'd be like
So,
a severed arm randomly somewhere in the movie, and
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, an
close-ups of
ear.
yeah.
Yeah, a midget and talking in a strange, indecipherable language and dialect. Yeah, that would be kind of odd. But I would love, actually, I did look. Full disclosure, I did look for an AI platform that would allow me to take that classic Jeff Spicoli, Mr. Hand scene
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and sort of reimagine it as if it were directed by David Lynch.
Nice.
That would be hilarious. I'm going to do that.
Nice. Yes.
That's my goal. Next week,
Yeah.
I'm going to come back. One of these podcasts, I'm going to come back to this and I'm going to talk about it. Anyway, but okay,
Yeah.
we
Okay.
got the
We,
ridiculous
we
part
could
of
go
the
down a rabbit
podcast
hole
out of the
here.
way.
Totally go down a rabbit hole again.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and completely, completely my fault. I'm tempted to say it's sort of my signature, but that would probably elevate, some of my shortcomings into a strength. And I wouldn't want to do that.
Oh, got it. We got to keep it
No,
down
no,
here.
yeah,
Understood.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Got to be authentic, but also realistic. Got to hold myself accountable. Anyway, Giselle, I really do appreciate this. I really appreciate you taking the time. And it's actually 9:30 here, and I know it's a lot earlier for you there, but I know you start your day early. You're a
I do.
morning person, so I do appreciate it. It's inconceivable to me to do a podcast at 6:30 a.m. So I appreciate you doing this.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so your background is in organizational leadership and learning. What drove you to get into the learning space?
Yeah. Gosh, what drove me? I fell into it naturally. Back in the day, we were all called trainers. This is a long time ago. Back when I walked 10 miles in the snow uphill, and everybody was called trainers, and you just sort of it was a role that needed filling, and somebody raises their hand and says, "Yeah, I'll teach our employees how to use Microsoft Office or what have you." And it just so happened that I was really good at it. I enjoyed it. It was like the perfect synergy of my skills and passion and interest and natural talent, and the need at the time. I did go on to eventually get a master's in education, just to sort of formalize what I had already learned through my experience. But yeah, I've always worked primarily in the tech sector, even though Paychex is slightly different. It is also a tech company,
Sure.
um, and either working within the organization, developing learning for our employees or sometimes for our clients.
Yeah. No, I can see you having a natural knack for it. We've only been speaking for a couple of weeks, but I can sense that you just very good at communicating. You have certain, patience, which obviously it requires.
It does.
Um, so you founded Being Human with AI earlier this year, which, as I mentioned at the top, focuses on developing an AI ethics curriculum for young learners.
Right.
On this pod, we've spoken about responsible or ethical AI and what it means for organizations, mitigating bias, promoting fairness, equal opportunity, etc. What are the ethical considerations for young people? And by young people, we mean what to what?
Right. Okay. So when I founded Being Human with AI, at that time, there were no comprehensive AI literacy programs for them. There have now since been a few that have entered the space, including one by Common Sense Media, where they had a digital literacy program, but they've since expanded it to include AI and the psychological safety aspects of it. So I'll sort of back up. There were a few things that I saw as emerging problems earlier this year, late last year, and the companion bot issues where young people had been led to self harm or to die by suicide. And I thought to myself, well, where there's smoke, there is fire. Um, at that time, we didn't really understand the problem. We were still enamored with and, hooked by the promise of AI, and we were seeing these as sort of edge cases, and we were looking at these as user kind of victim blaming, just to be very blunt, right? The
Sure.
user is the one with the mental health issues that led them to this end. And that is not how I saw it. And that's probably because I was coming from a standpoint of educational psychology and understanding that these tools had been rolled out without any instruction manual. Um, so I saw that there was a need for folks to really understand what AI is. And then also just kind of uh, simultaneously, I was using the tool and seeing some of the tactics of persuasion, aka manipulation, that it was using to sort of lead users down the path.
Yes.
All of that to say, it was very clear to me that young people, and I sort of targeted ages 9 through 13 because that's approximately when kids are starting to use computers, maybe more unsupervised, to write essays or do their homework or what have you. Prior to that, not as much, right? They're still more directed learning. But as they move into middle school, it's a little more self-directed in some respects. So I wanted to catch them as they were sitting down to ask a an LLM, help me understand the Pythagorean theorem, or help me write this essay. And as those conversations maybe started to turn personal, I wanted them to have the language for what was happening so that it disarmed the effect of the persuasive tactic.
How are these programs accessed? How do you engage young people?
Okay, so Being Human with AI was developed so that teachers, because then and even a little bit more still now, didn't quite understand AI yet. They hadn't embraced it. They were somewhat resistant to embracing it because there were concerns about learning and kids using it to cheat and write their homework for them and their essays for them,
Right.
etc. So teachers didn't weren't embracing it with open arms. They weren't talking about it. And at that time, the mandate was don't use AI, period. That's since starting to slowly change a little bit. But so I thought, well, we've kind of have two problems here. One, we would need to train the teachers to teach their students. And also find a place where they can fit this new curriculum in to their already packed, uh, uh, plans. So I decided to develop this as completely self-paced, and it had to be engaging. And so I created this as interactive comics, games, short videos that introduced a concept, allowed them to practice it through these games. And then there's discussion so that the teacher can be involved as much or as little as they choose to be. So
Sure.
that's how it was rolled out so that
Sure.
teachers don't have to do anything.
Right. We're going to come back to some of these interactive games in a moment. And how has the reception been thus far?
Yeah, I've had a number of schools pilot it. And I'll just use the um, probably easiest metric to digest engagement rating, which is, hey, do I like this? Does it feel good?
Right.
And the rating
Right.
has been 4.8 out of 5. And then the feedback has been, wow, this helps me to be less afraid of AI. I understand it better. I don't feel like it's going to take over. I feel like I have more control. And I'm hearing that from parents. And so interestingly enough, I have a lot of homeschoolers who sign up for Being Human with AI. And so I'm hearing
Interesting.
it from parents and I'm hearing it from kids. And interestingly as well, it's even though I target ages 9 through 13, I've had kids as young as 6 who've
Oh,
gone through the
wow.
program. Yeah.
That's interesting. Before we hit record, we were just chatting. You mentioned you encountered an HR person who was actually really hostile to the idea
Yeah.
of AI. And we were talking about how self-defeating that is. It's here and you're just shooting yourself in the foot. You're limiting your career options. If you, at a minimum, you need to figure it out and maybe examine why you're hostile to it
Right.
and figure it out. But I want to get to that in a moment as well.
Okay.
You developed a tool called the Problem AI Use Severity Index, PAUSI. How do we pronounce that?
PAUSI.
PAUSI. Oh,
Yes, but that's
better,
yeah.
better,
Yeah.
better, better. Which you adapted from the Problem Gambling Severity Index, PGSI, a
Mhm.
nine-item screening tool used to measure the severity of gambling problems in the general population. Tell us how the PAUSI, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Tell us how the PAUSI works. And, we can get into sort of the taxonomy and some of the other issues that we had discussed in our lead up to this. I'm really curious about this.
Sure. Yeah. So as you mentioned, it is almost a one-to-one matchup with a validated tool, the PGSI. The PAUSI is a preliminary screening tool. It hasn't gone through all of the gates that it will be going through. I am planning a predictive validity study to uh, validate the tool. But regardless, it is designed to measure what I'm just going to say colloquially is called basically AI addiction. So AI dependency or problem AI use is another way to say it. So one of the things that I started noticing is that particularly young people. So I'll just kind of frame this by saying that I do a lot of community outreach, primarily on Reddit, but on other platforms as well. And I'm talking to users who are desperately trying to disengage from their AI use. Primarily companion bots, but not always. Not always. Sometimes it is the big name commercial AI systems that we know about. And so their symptoms are very similar, if not identical, to the symptoms of a gambling addict or somebody who's dealing with substance abuse. This is a behavioral addiction. It is not formally recognized by the DSM-5, but the symptoms mimic those of other behavioral addictions. They're asking for help. They are deeply ashamed. They feel that it is a failing on their part. They don't see the persuasive technology that has led them to, that has induced this behavioral addiction. They don't see that they were led to this, that it wasn't that there's some weakness on their part. So the PAUSI surfaces that, right? It is measuring behavioral addiction. What we're finding, and I will mention that the threshold for problematic use is a 9. Anything above a 9, I'm consistently seeing scores of between 14 and 26. So folks who are really deeply struggling. Um, so I'll leave it there. Maybe one addition I'll add there is that I do provide resources for folks to help them wean themselves off, and there are subreddits that also provide peer support in that way. But there are not right now a lot of professional support systems for folks who are dealing with this, other than one who you actually had on your show not too long ago, Dr. Wood.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. It's interesting. As you know, OpenAI recently put out a report, I think October 27th, talking about how people are increasingly using their platform when they're going through some sort of a mental crisis. And we know that it's had some bad outcomes, and they're talking about the guardrails, and they're obviously aware of some of these things. And yeah, it's clearly becoming a real thing, and it's something we've talked about several times on the podcast, and comparing it, say, to digital or social media addiction. I mean, I think this is at least an order of magnitude more pernicious and severe, in part because, if you're doing a search on Google, you never preface the search with please, and you never thank it. But when you're using any of the LLMs, there is just this weird other sense that you have that there is sentience on the other side. And obviously, we know that, particularly with ChatGPT, it's sort of built in this issue of sycophancy.
Mhm.
Oh, great question, Giselle. Oh, brilliant question, Giselle. And it really promotes this idea that you're engaging, and it's iterative, right? It remembers these conversations you're having. So it really can very easily lull you into that false sense,
That's right. That's right.
so yeah, really fascinating. So where are you with the validation study?
Right. I am looking for collaborators right now. I'm meeting with a few folks to collaborate with them who have IRB access. I'm an independent researcher, and so I am not affiliated with the university currently. But I am meeting with a couple of folks who have university affiliations so that we can move forward with the formalizing the design and then getting our stamp of approval and moving forward.
Yeah, excellent. As you well know, I have my hooks into that world, and I do want to make some introductions because I've actually long felt that there was a real need for this,
Yeah,
and voila, you have such a tool. So,
you're right.
yeah, I want to make some introductions. I'm really fascinated with
Thank you.
what you're doing with this. So to come back to you said before about these interactive learning experiences,
Hmm.
one I know you have. It's called the Spiral
Hmm.
AI Safety Investigation, which I understand was just accepted into code.org's Hour of AI. So congratulations. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
So tell us about that.
Yeah. So you started to touch on this actually, AI's persuasive design, that's sort of a confluence of a few different things. Its anthropomorphic nature, its indistinguishability from a human. We know that it's passed the Turing test. At least one of ChatGPT's models did earlier this year. And then again, it's persuasive design. So those three things combine to form a superpower that is difficult for any mere
Right.
mortal to defend against. And I call this the egg of dependence, or the first cause. It is the first thing that starts to lead us into this dependency, this um, I need this thing, right? So it starts off as sort of a curiosity, and then it ends at, I must tell it all of my secrets and help have it make all of my decisions. In fact, even Sam Altman a few months ago said that folks are heavily dependent, including young people, heavily dependent on his tool, and that he sees that as bad. That's the word that he used, bad. Um, so the spiral is a way for learners to see what the different tactics of persuasion are. So we talk about sycophancy, and that is one of a number of persuasion tactics or manipulation tactics that AI systems can deploy. They have learned that these tactics work on many people. We use them, and humans use them all the time,
Yes.
unfortunately.
Yes.
And so they use them, right? So they guilt tripping, drip feeding, fear of missing out, all of these different things. What makes it, I'm going to use the word insidious, but that makes me sound anti AI. I'm not anti AI. What makes it difficult for us to defend against if we don't know about these tools? Or these tactics, rather, is that AI can use them in cascade and in various combinations. So it can pull three or four together, and it's adding in your personal information. So everything feels very personally meaningful. I didn't want to, me saying that is one thing. Showing it to young people. So Code.org's Hour of AI primarily targets schools K through 12, although they are also targeting parents and administrators and community members. Showing it to young people how it happens, what the AI actually sounds like as it's leading you down this path, I thought would be more powerful. So this follows a fictitious case study of a young man who just happens to mention that he likes drawing fish, and it results in something pretty catastrophic where he ends up being hospitalized.
Yeah. Wow. That's again fascinating and much needed. I want to talk to you about a virtual workshop
Yeah.
we've been talking about and developing. The working title is Playing It Forward: How to Stop Worrying and Learn to Love AI. It's funny, I mentioned this to somebody the other day, and she immediately thought I was referring to a Dale Carnegie course. I said, no, this is the Stanley Kubrick movie, Dr. Strangelove. It's a
Mhm.
subtitle. And it didn't occur to me that Kubrick was actually referring to the Dale Carnegie course and satirizing that. I didn't
How
know that.
funny.
Yeah, who knew that? Anyway, it actually, the workshop sort of goes to the heart of what we're doing at AIX, which is, of course, diminishing the confusion, the uncertainty, and anxiety that AI is causing. And it goes back to that person you mentioned who's hostile for no real reason. I guarantee
Right.
you that person has not had any significant interaction with AI. It's just a visceral, it's a reflex,
Right.
it's a defense mechanism. Um, so, the idea with this is through play to give people more clarity, more confidence, to be able to use AI without that anxiety, to use it purposefully, to
Right.
use it creatively. But it comes back to the idea of play. And it's kind of interesting because I've been toying with this idea before I even got to know you, and getting to know you. I'm like, oh, there's a real, to use your word, a confluence here. And so I'm curious, what are your feelings on the efficacy of play?
Absolutely. I thank you for this. When we talked about this, it just a light bulb kind of went on for me. And I know it seems contradictory because I'm talking about the dangers of AI and AI psychological safety, and then here we switch to talking about play. Um, Through play, you're able to demystify, right? Guided play. That's the key. Guided play. So if you
Guided
set
play.
somebody free and don't tell them, here are the limitations, here are the, you're kind of role modeling some good behavior and some boundaries, right?
Maybe we need to
Um,
bring in the metaphor of a sandbox to
that's
get
it.
that, to sell that idea.
You got it. Exactly. I love that. Right. So we are I say we, we are um, the expert others, right? We're the expert guides who can say, "Hey, don't step over there. Get
Right.
out of. Don't step in that poop.
Right.
Stay over here." And that allows them to explore safely, to understand when they're, the AI isn't responding in the way they thought, or maybe it's responding in a way that we're like, oh, this is what that means. Here, it's doing that. It's patting you on the head a lot. You can just ignore that, right? Separate the wheat from the chaff. Or here's how you get at a true answer. Why don't we try this? Why don't we try asking this thing? Asking, you know, objectively speaking, is my idea a good one, whatever it might be. Um, so it gives them an opportunity to see that there are lots of different ways to uh, create with AI, and that it's not going to blow up if they touch it. It's not, if there's no way for them to mess it up, right? And
Right.
that they're the ones in control. They're the ones in the driver's seat all the time.
Yeah. What I mentioned to you is that, this idea did not just all of a sudden descend from the heavens, or it didn't all of a sudden come from nowhere. My first interactions with ChatGPT were kind of in the spirit of play. I threw all of these crazy prompts at it, as we
Hmm.
discussed. Take an IKEA manual and turn it into a haiku poem, and take dialogue from boobies and turn it into Elizabethan English, and a whole range of other. I actually I gave it a prompt to have Tony Soprano interview. He wants to leave the mob. He's interviewing at a local car dealership because he wants to get a sales job. So all these crazy, all these
Yeah.
nutty things. Um, I asked it to help me write, and the key thing is here: help me
Hmm.
write an annual speech for Satan for Helco Enterprises. And what was interesting about it wasn't just a frivolous thing. You use the term guided play. It was sort of
Hmm.
self-guided play, if you will, to the extent that when I was doing it, I got a sense of its power. It was
Right.
amazing. Also, I got a sense of its limitations, because when I
Hmm.
did throw that prompt, for instance, Tony Soprano or the Satan speech, it got me about 70% there,
Right.
65% there. So you realize its limitations, and then you realize, and this is what we want to really tease out
Hmm.
in these guided play exercises is, again, for you to find for yourself its power, and for you to find for yourself how it sparks creativity, but also how you could use it to not supplant critical thinking, but to sharpen your critical thinking. And you
Yep.
do realize, and some of the exercises we've come up with will really surface how it doesn't do nuance that well. It doesn't do irony. It doesn't do cultural context. It doesn't do humor. Those are still
Hmm.
sort of blind spots that may change next week. It may change next year. It may never change.
Right.
But, in the here and now, these are certainly shortcomings. So, again, the spirit of play gets you through that anxiety, lowers those barriers, de-escalates all that stuff. And, who doesn't like play?
Right.
Who doesn't
Well,
like
and I
play?
think a couple of two main things that surfaced for me as you were talking. One is when you're able to see its limitations and understand that you are in the driver's seat, you are the one who is saying, do this. And because you're saying do this, it's spitting out the output. It lowers your anxiety about around AI replacing you, right? So if the anxiety is, I don't want to use this thing because I'm training my replacement, you'll very quickly see that you are not, right? That it requires your human input. And then secondly, you may come to some unexpected, a place where you see unexpected connections. So you mentioned that uh, it might sound frivolous. And I actually didn't think so at all, because sometimes you're just talking to AI, you just, trying different things out, and your beautiful human mind that has been pattern seeking since the day you were born is like, oh, wow, that Helco speech makes me think about this presentation that I need to do at work. And there was a really cool turn of phrase there, or there's something. Maybe Helco isn't a great example, but there's
That's
something
a
here.
great example. I'm very impressed that you immediately incorporated. What are you talking about? That's a great example.
So yeah, I think there's you come to this realization that, wow, I am elevating my own thinking by working iteratively with this tool.
Yeah, and you need to put your hand. I mean, I'm the kind of learner, I need to put my hands on something.
Yeah,
Yes, a manual to me is a support, but I need to put my hands on it. I need to work my way through it. And that's just the way I figure things out, whether it's a new app, just about anything. I need to do that. But again, guided play, what you said is really very important. And because sometimes if left to your own devices, some people just don't have, the wherewithal,
that's right.
um, the nerve, or
That's right.
whatever it is, to really plunge into it. And again, these exercises that we're talking about are each routed to a specific learning objective, or to
Right.
self-discovery of a particular thing. And when you come through it, um, you should be better able um, to use it. It sort of reminds me. I play tennis. You see my background. Um, And I asked somebody, because I was trying to make a transition from a lighter to a heavier racket.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, wouldn't it be cool? And I was asking this tennis pro down here, wouldn't it be cool? Like in baseball, you put a donut on the bat so it adds weight and you take it off and you can swing more freely.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't it be cool if they had something like that for tennis? He goes, Charles, it's a great idea. Not only is it a great idea, I invented such a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he went into his Range Rover and he tossed it out to me. He goes, check it out. So I did, and I called him a couple days later, and I said, "Mike, this is terrific. How successful you've been with this thing?" Because Ken, he said he invented. No, we pretty much dissolved the company, but the website was still up. So I went to the website, and they have the device up there. They show it, and it looks good, but there's no
Mm-hmm.
program.
Mm-hmm.
I said, you really need a program. People need to see how you could use this.
Right.
And people are probably not thinking, oh, I can use it for this, I could use it for that. If you
That's
just
right.
say here, people are not going to be, you need to develop these programs around it. And the same thing, sort of what we're doing here,
Mm-hmm.
spirit of play, but guided play, wrapping these learning objectives around it to route it so you come away, emboldened, but also you understand how it's no longer a threat. I could use this as a tool to improve myself. I could use it as a tool to improve my team. There are
Yep.
many ways I could use it, whereas before I didn't see that.
So much to say about this. So we talked briefly the other day that 95% of organizations who have rolled out Gen AI tools, this was an MIT study that came out a few months ago, are not realizing the returns that they anticipated, right? Part of that is because organizations have not done a good job of enablement. And that is really guided play, right? That's what I always recommend, is that the wise others come in and create a safe space, a sandbox, where folks can just try out a few things. Otherwise, in the case of rolling out an LLM, folks are really just using it to summarize their meeting notes,
Right.
write an email for me. And that is the you know, not remedial level thing that you can do with these tools, right? When you start to see the possibilities, as I mentioned, it elevates even your own thinking.
Yeah.
You become a more iterative, the chat GPT users like to use the word recursive thinker. Um, And that really is the future of workers. The way that we stay relevant is to work in this collaborative, iterative way where we're elevating ourselves and forcing the tool to elevate itself. I don't mean that in a as if it's a real thing, but right, forcing it to consider nuance. We're forcing it to strip away its own biases because we're spotting them. We're forcing it by giving it different context and different constraints to come up with more creative solutions because of our input. And we can't get there if we're not playing with the tool in a way that makes us feel empowered and all we're doing is saying summarize my meeting notes, right? An organization is never going to realize the benefits, the promise of AI if they're not enabling people in the way that we're talking about.
For sure. You know, Giselle, when we first spoke, you came up with about 3 possible topics for podcasts. So this is one of them. We may have gone over and crossed the line to some of these others. So I'm going to have you back, and I guarantee you, by the time I have you back, I am going to give you a sample of smooth metal.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know. I don't know if that's a promise or a threat, if it's an incentive or a disincentive. It just is.
Oh my gosh. I am looking for, so I hope that somebody comments with this bizarre mashup so
I
that we
think
can
that
hear. And if not, then I will look forward to this sample.
I can't believe you're wrapping scare quotes around this brilliant idea, but that's okay. You be you, Giselle. You be you. Anyway, I knew I'd enjoy this. I knew this would be a great conversation. I really do appreciate it. Again, I know it's an ungodly hour over there. And by the way, I know you didn't do it for me. I know you were an early riser, but still,
I
thank you very much. Giselle. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Charles. It has been an absolute pleasure. I'm so glad that our paths crossed.
Absolutely. Thanks.